in a lot of ways, even the way the program's structured, and not just talking volume, talking about like there's got to be specific focuses if you're a competitive athlete in the program on areas that you need work on. I mean, like a competitive CrossFit athlete is going to need more Olympic lifting practice and high skill practice to keep those movements sharp than as someone who's just trying to hit a distant horizon, you know what I mean, of health and just slow progression. You know, it's okay if they only snatch once or twice a month, as opposed to a competitive athlete where if they only snatch once a month, it's like, man, it's feeling a little rusty. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and that's part of the reason why here we have two different programs. We realize there's, you know, two different types of people that come through our doors. There's some people that are here just for lifestyle reasons. There's other people that want to have some fun competing. And so we kind of tailor to that. But yeah, I was talking to a professor because you were in exercise science as well. And I was talking to my physiology professor, and he's actually going to be on the podcast here in a few weeks, where we were talking about how in CrossFit, especially, you know, from the HQ standpoint, fats and protein are promoted. And at the time, and during class, we were talking about how carbohydrates are the main fuel source for those phosphocreatine glycolytic systems. So those, you know, Fran-style workouts, those anaerobic, fast-paced, hard-hitting, heavy workouts. And, you know, I was asking, I was like, how does that make sense to you that fat would be the recommended fuel source for a program that is, you know, known for these short, intense workouts? And he said, he's like, it doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, you can make it happen. You can fuel the body with fat in that manner, but he's like, it's not the most efficient way to do it. And, you know, looking at the way carbs fuel the body, carbohydrates are the main fuel for the nervous system. You know, they refill the glycogen stores really quickly. So if you are working out multiple times a day, you're ready for that next workout. Whereas the amount of time it's going to take for that fat to be restored or to restore those glycogen stores, it's going to be a lot longer process. You know what I mean? So would you agree then that increasing carbs, do you think you feel better overall as an athlete?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you feel like, not just like numbers wise, but do you feel like your energy from day to day is just a lot better with carbs?
I would say so. Like, I don't think I've never had a huge issue where it's like, you know, 2:00 rolls around and I have to take a nap. But
you don't have that problem?
Not as much, but I don't have a kid either, so like I don't have.
You know what
it
might be? It might be because you work at Reverie Coffee now, and you're
right.
Free
Yeah.
coffee.
So no, too much coffee. I'm trying to like taper off that a little bit. It's too easy. It's free.
They do have some great cold brew, by the way. They have some great cold brew there.
Yeah, I'll tell Oscar.
Well,
you like it.
We had a couple of our members here bring me some one day, and I was just blown away at how good it tasted. I was very blown away.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So, you know, you were programming for yourself. How does that differ between now working with, from what it sounds like, a pretty high level coach? You know, what's the big difference you noticed there?
Well, I think the big programming difference is that when I would program for myself, like it was a day-to-day thing. It's like, okay, how do I feel today? What do I need to work on? What am I going to do? And then just figure it out from there. And it worked okay, but I think it really helps to have like a structure where it's like, I know that on week 1, it's going to build, you know, into week 2, onto week 3, into, you know, all the way up to like week 8 or week 12 or whatever the cycle is. Like there's a long-term focus. And even if I like necessarily can't see it in week 1, like there's going to be, I know there's a purpose to it. And I know there's like it's more effective over the long term than necessarily just like, how do I feel today? You know, so I think that's the biggest difference, is having like a longer term focus. And
you did get a long ways just by going off of how you felt each day, you know? And I think with maybe having this higher level coach, do you feel like there are some days where, you know, because it's hard for a coach to know how you feel from day to day. Do you think that there's something lost in a sense? Because obviously you're a better athlete than you were, but do you think in a sense there's something lost from him not knowing how you feel on certain days? Or will you message him if you're like, hey, you know, the volume this past month has been like too much, too little, or I always feel crappy on Thursday? Do you know, how's that communication work?
Yeah, there is communication about that stuff. You know, sometimes he'll program. Most of my communication is on accessory stuff with him. You know, so like, for example, this past cycle, like Tuesdays were pressing days, and like they were really high volume pressing. It was like jerks, handstand push-ups, and strict press. And then the accessory afterwards would be more like pressing. And I was basically I would tell him, it's like, I can't do that much pressing. Like the accessory stuff, like I'm just burned out. My shoulders are going to be crushed. Like it's just not going to work. So I'd kind of work around that a little bit. And sometimes I don't actually communicate with him all that much if I'm going to change stuff, just because I kind of know a good alternative, because I've spent so much time programming for myself. I'm like, okay, I know that if I do this, I can get, X, Y, Z.
I see.
So some of it's communication. Some of it is just, I do what I feel like I need to do. But I would still say probably like 95% of the time, even if I'm like, God, my legs hurt so bad, I don't want to do lunges right now. I'm like, I trust that he knows how to prescribe this volume.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been, there haven't been a lot of moments where I'm like, man, that was a bad decision. It's like, it worked out.
Do you know by chance if he's like using a template that himself and most of his athletes are all using, like including you, and then he just makes small changes to it based off of your needs, or is it like straight up your program?
No, it's more of a template thing.
Okay.
He does write it. I think he kind of writes it for his regionals and games level athletes, and then changes it based on, like for me, he'll change it based on, like I did the Wadapalooza qualifiers this past week, so he'll change it to reflect that I need to deload. So next week's a deload, which I needed so bad.
Yeah. You hear that, people? Everyone listening right now, it's okay to deload every once in a while.
Oh man, I need it. But some people might not be deloading because it's just a normal training week, for them. But yeah.
How often do you deload?
Oh man, full deload. I think this is maybe like the second or third one that I've done in like 2 years.
Okay.
Or like
what do you mean by a full deload?
Like where everything's deloaded. Like the weightlifting is light and it's low intensity metcons and it's low volume.
Just taking it easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there are weeks where, or like there were structures where it'd be like you build, like, so it's a back squat, like week 1, 5 rep max, week 2, 5 rep max plus, 5 or 10 pounds, week 3, 5 rep max plus 10 or 20 pounds. But you can't sustain that forever. So you'd like build up for 3 weeks and then deload for a week. There were deloads like that, but I was still hitting metcons really hard.
Right.
But this is like a full, like, not doing anything super hard for a full week.
Yeah.
And I don't do that often.
I see.
I get bored.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. Yeah, what we do, and you can tell me your opinion on this, give you some feedback. So what we do here at our gym for our performance crew, and these are by no means, regional athletes, just people that are trying to have more competitive programming for fun for most of them. What we do, and what I've noticed for myself and most of the people here, is we do a deload like every 4th week. So we'll hit 3 weeks hard. The 4th week we'll deload, which is a pretty typical template for like powerlifting and stuff. But the week that we do like as a deload, quote unquote, is usually still pretty intense with the metcons, but just a little bit laid back off the weightlifting. So for example, like we still did like a hero workout on Tuesday, but there was no lifting in it. Or like, Friday we did one of the open workouts with handstand push-ups and power cleans, but there was no like heavy power cleans beforehand. Do you think that that's something that makes it more sustainable as opposed to just brutalizing the body with heavy lifting all year long?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, and that usually is when I program for people. I follow a pretty similar like 3-on-1 lighter kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. I think people like to go heavy too often, and they want to max too often because there's this focus on like testing, and you always want to see if you're better. Yeah. So people max out a lot, and I think for me, the last couple months I've hit a lot of PRs, which is weird because I wasn't necessarily like trying really hard to. Yeah. But I think the reason was for the last like year and a half I haven't maxed like anything. Really? So I think by not missing so much, if you're going for a max lift, you're gonna miss quite a bit. And if you continually max all the time, I think in some ways like either mentally get used to missing, or you're starting to create a pattern where like a movement pattern that creates misses if you just keep missing all the time. Yeah. So if you keep the weight lighter and do deload and and just hit weights that you're going to hit and actually work on that technique, I think long term you're going to see more benefits than just like throwing as much on the bar every single time you do something. Yeah,
that's something that Louis Simmons from Westside, I don't know if you've listened to some of his stuff. He talks about that a lot, how, and I mean it's very similar to how a lot of CrossFitters program, but how by keeping things varied so much that they actually never do a legitimate deadlift until competition day,
Right.
because they don't want them to they want them to get used to winning, so every time they touch a bar, they're hitting something different. So that way they're not mentally defeated, like, oh, I didn't hit what I wanted to hit today, because they have no idea what that is that they're lifting. It could be a different bar from a different deficit with different amount of bands on it. And they just have no idea what they're pulling. They're just like, hey, I just pulled some heavy weight. Cool. On to the next one.
Right.
And then when it gets time to competition, they're like, well, I haven't missed yet, so why miss now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus I guess if you're that strong and you max your deadlift, like,
It
you're
takes a
going to
lot.
crush your central nervous system for like weeks.
It takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I wanted to ask you, like, as the weights have gotten heavier for you, you know what I mean, over the past couple years, how has the weightlifting portion changed for you, like, as far as frequency goes? Like, do you feel like you're lifting more frequently than you were, but just at those percentages, like you said, it's been a long time since you've maxed? Or do you feel like it's fairly infrequent? What would you say to that?
I mean, I do weightlift every day.
Okay.
I mean, except for Thursday and Sunday.
Are those your, like, straight off days, or are those
Thursday's just an aerobic day, and then Sunday's a full rest day.
full rest day? Okay.
No, I mean, I would say there's much more like technique emphasis. So the way this past week or cycle was structured was, snatch technique. It was technique work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was snatch, jerk, clean. Friday was like work to a heavy single snatch or clean and jerk, and then the other day would be a power snatch or power clean and jerk.
Okay. So you're doing Olympic lifting of some kind,
right?
5 days a week.
Yeah, and then squatting Monday, Friday, deadlift Wednesday, and other kind of like accessory stuff. But like throughout, even like the heavy single days, like I probably only missed like 2 lifts. So it was build to a heavy single for the day, not a max. So if I hit like 90%, it's like, wow, that was pretty heavy. Like I was just done.
Yeah.
I didn't miss. And then on the days where it's like, wow, this feels really good, then lift heavy and, hit a PR or something like that. But, it's frequent, but it's not particularly heavy all the time.
What would you say is the percentage range is usually, like 75
for
to
a heavy
85% for most days of the week?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good estimate.
That's what the Russians train at. So,
Yeah.
how strong are those guys, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
How many drugs are those guys on?
Taking any supplements?
Yeah, that good stuff.
Yeah.
That Tren and Jerry's.
That's a good point. I'm guessing it doesn't come in a 1 gallon size thing,
Right.
does it? Yeah. I think that's one thing that is always tricky for somebody programming to balance out, is how much time that they're spending on the Olympic lifting versus spending it on accessory versus spending it on Metcon. And, especially for, overuse injuries have kind of plagued the CrossFit community in a lot of ways. And how do you think the percentage work of, like, and I don't mean like the percentage work as far as like the intensity of the snatch or the clean and jerk, but I mean like as far as like if you were to take a slice of, pie for the day, of, how much snatch work you're doing compared to Metcon, compared to accessory work, how do you normally balance all those out? Or maybe with your new coach, how does he normally balance that out? Would you say it's like 30% Olympic lifting, 30%, Metcon, 30% accessory work? Or how do you think that's divided up?
I'd say it's actually pretty well balanced, which I like a lot. So it's usually a monostructural session in the morning. Like, so either run, row, bike, ski. He writes swim workouts. I don't do them because I suck at swimming. I don't like swimming. I don't have a particular need to do it.
I don't know about you, but I get crushed by old guys at the YMCA whenever I go swimming.
There has to be like, so when you turn 60, somebody comes like, okay, here is your swimming pill, and it's like you now are great at swimming. Like
That's
old people are so good at it. I don't get it, but anyways.
It's got to be a buoyancy thing. It's not us.
Yeah, it can't be. It can't be the fact I never practice. So it's normally monostructural in the morning, and then the afternoon is like Olympic lift, and then more of like a slow lift, like squat or deadlift or something like that. Metcon, accessory. Sometimes there's a gymnastics piece in there, but like it's all pretty like well divided out.
Is it similar from day to day, or does he like rotate?
It's pretty similar.
So can you say that one more time? So is monostructural
morning monostructural.
Okay.
Hashtag morning monostructural. Look it up. It's a thing.
That's good.
And then weightlifting, like Olympic lifting, powerlifting, Metcon, accessory.
Is that usually broken up to like 3 different workouts throughout the day, or
no? Usually 2 sessions.
2 sessions.
Monostructural is the first session, and then the rest of it's in the second one.
Okay. And how long were those sessions normally lasting?
The mono piece is usually like 40 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
And then the afternoon's usually like 2 to 3 hours.
And then that's just straight 2 to 3 hours?
Yeah.
Wow. It's a long time.